Hey there, what is up, fight nerds and dirty gamblers? I am Erik, and this is Erik Bets Fights. Tonight we're going to do a quick recap of this most recent UFC event, UFC Vegas something, UFC on ESPN something. I can't keep up with all that stuff. We're just going to call it UFC Kattar versus Giga because it was the Kattar versus Giga card. So what we're going to do, we're going to just do a quick recap of the fights, mostly for the purpose of recapping our bets, but I'll kind of talk about each fight a little bit. It was a winning night for us, so that was awesome. We ended 2021 with a winning card, and we came into 2022 with a winning card as well. So things are looking good on the betting front. I wasn't able to watch this entire card. My wife and I went on a trip to Phoenix on Saturday. So I was watching the first part of the card while kind of packing and getting ready and stuff because I'm a dude and I was not packed and ready. And then for the latter portion of the card, we were driving and I was kind of watching on my phone when I could and stuff, but I didn't see everything like real carefully. I did go back and watch a few things to get caught up, but not everything. Anyway, let's go ahead and start at the bottom of the card. First fight was TJ Brown versus Charles Rosa. I ended up creating a parlay based entirely on, it was before I even watched tape on the replacement opponents, but I did end up creating a parlay based mostly on just fading the people who came in last minute. TJ Brown was supposed to fight Gabriel Benitez. Charles Rosa came in. So I threw TJ Brown in a parlay with Brian Kelleher, who also had a last-minute replacement opponent in Kevin Croom, and then also Caitlin Chukaghian. So it was TJ Brown, Brian Kelleher, Caitlin Chukaghian. I put one unit on that, I think, at plus 196, and that hit pretty easily, so that was nice. The TJ Brown and Charles Rosa fight, TJ Brown won by decision. I caught parts of that fight. I wasn't super interested in it. I mean, it was a fun fight. It was a pretty exciting fight and everything, but nothing real high stakes there. TJ Brown looked decent, I guess. Next fight, Brian Kelleher defeats Kevin Croom by unanimous decision. That was the second leg of that parlay there. I was kind of impressed with Croom here, actually. That guy's kind of fun to watch. He's long and lanky and kind of has a goofy style. He's always I like how he's always feinting that weird little. He feints like this here, and then he feints a weird little uppercut all the time. I don't know. I kind of got a kick out of that, but that was a fun fight. I don't know. Croom's a fun fighter. He's the kind of guy you can keep around and just kind of, and he'll fight anybody. He doesn't give a shit, you know. You can just send that guy in to fight anybody. So why not keep Kevin Croom around for a while? So yeah, Kelleher won that by unanimous decision. So the first two legs of our fade the late replacements parlay, those cashed there. Our next fight was Court McGee versus Ramis Brahimi, which was one of my most confident reads on the card. We did end up putting 2 units on Court McGee. Let's see, what did we get him at? 2 units on Court McGee at minus 110. Court pretty much dominated that fight. It went about how we expected it to. The read behind that bet was that Brahimi wasn't going to be able to submit Court, wasn't going to be able to out-wrestle him, probably wasn't going to be able to out-strike him, and all of those things were true. He wasn't able to do any of that. Court really came out there with the old man power, and he was able to out-wrestle Brahimi. He was able to catch him with some shots and hurt him. It's just a really nice performance from Court. It's kind of fun to see him just to see how he's doing right now. It's fun when you see, I mean, kind of like we saw with Arlovsky. We've seen it with fighters before where, you know, they might be looking a bit like they're at the end of their career, like they're on their last leg, and they just kind of turn a corner and start to put it together again. We're kind of seeing that with Court right now. It's kind of fun to see. Next fight was Jamie Pickett versus Joseph Holmes. I didn't really even see this fight. I caught a little bit of it here and there, but that was a fight I was staying away from. I didn't have any interest in betting that fight. Jamie Pickett won by unanimous decision. I don't even know that I have anything to say about that fight. Like I said, I didn't even really watch it, so let's move on. We didn't have a bet there. Next fight, Bill Algeo defeats Joe Anderson Brito by unanimous decision. We did have 2 bets. We had 2 units on Brito. We got him at minus 120, and then I also sprinkled for Brito to finish by KO in round 1. I did a spot on Z's MMA. I did a spot on his podcast, the Fair Play podcast, last week. And I even mentioned on that podcast, when I mentioned this bet, I said that I didn't feel great about it. My three straight money line plays on this card were Caitlin Chukaghian, Court McGee, and Joe Anderson Brito. I felt really good about Chikadze in court. After placing that Brito bet, I didn't feel good about it. I even thought about hedging out of that one. So even though we did win on this card, it would have been even better if I would have just kind of trusted my instincts more and only placed the bets that I felt really, really good about, because I didn't feel that great about Brito. I just kind of pulled the trigger a little hastily on that one. So, there's still mistakes that I'm making at this game regularly. There probably always will be. I'm new to this, and I'm still learning as I go, and I've had a few instances here where I wish I would have just trusted myself a little more and listened to my instincts, and this was one of them. So we lived and learned a little bit here, but Brito, he came out like we expected. He came out hard in round one and was looking for the finish, looking pretty good in round one, and Algeo was able to kind of take over down the stretch. But it was a decent fight, and that's not the last we'll see of Joe Anderson Brito. Next fight, Vyacheslav Borshev, Slava Claus versus Dakota Bush. We stayed away from that one. I did say on the DFS by the Numbers Best Bets show last week, my pick for that one was Borshev to win by knockout, so we did get the pick right, but we didn't have a bet there. That was nice. I mean, who doesn't love a body shot KO, right? We don't see that very often, but that is fun to see. Yeah, Borshev just basically melted Dakota Bush's liver, just came right in there, boom, and just destroyed his liver, basically. But hey, you know what? Dakota Bush looked good up to that point. My notes on him when I watched tape, the notes that I typed were like, this guy's really not that good. This guy is like the definition of what UFC level means in, the COVID era. And after this fight, like, I feel like maybe I was a little too hard on him. He actually is pretty decent. He looked good. I mean, he hurt Slava with punches at least once, if not twice. He was able to take him down and control him on the ground, at least for a little while. Slava held his own on the ground. He was able to scramble out and get to his feet. But overall, I thought Bush looked pretty decent. So, yeah. Next fight was Chikadze versus Jennifer Maia. This was my strongest read on the whole card by far. This was the first bet that I made. This was the first fight that I watched tape on. I don't know why. I tend to choose the women's fights as the I know people always say don't bet on women's MMA. I tend to choose the women's fights to research first. And I think it's because a lot of times I feel like there ends up being more of a skill disparity in some of the women's fights. I feel like it's easier to make reads for me. I don't know, but yeah, I find that I gravitate toward researching women's fights and betting on them, and I do pretty well for the most part. So yeah, we were confident that Chikadze was going to win a decision here, which is exactly what she did. Maia didn't even really try to wrestle. I wasn't confident that she would do well even if she did try to wrestle. The fight looked a lot like last time, although actually Chikadze did go to the wrestling and the grappling at times, and Chikadze even dominated there. So, yeah, she won a very comfortable decision here. We had 2 units on her at minus 155. She ended up closing at like minus 190, so we beat some really good line movement there. And then, of course, Chikadze closed out that fade the late replacements parlay that we had with Brian Kelleher and TJ Brown as well. So we hit that too. Next fight up was Brandon Royval and Rogerio Bontorin. This was one of those fights that there was just way too dynamic for me to try to make a read and make a bet on it. I thought about betting the under. Glad I didn't, because the fight did go to decision. There was kind of a questionable possible tap in this fight. I went back and watched it in slow motion a bunch of times. I kind of don't think it was a tap. Bontorin... It was Bontorin that was right. I'm trying to remember who was who now. I think it was Bontorin. Like the way his hand hit, he didn't hit. He didn't tap. Was it his? I don't even remember what he was tapping on. Was it his own arm? Maybe I think so. I can't remember. But he didn't hit like this. He hit like this. Like it was like his wrist went over it. And to me, it almost just looked like when you're fighting, when you're grappling. I mean, you're making all kinds of big movements. Like who knows what he was trying to do? But it looked to me like he just kind of threw his arm across and it happened to hit like that. I don't think it was a tap. Who knows? It might have been. It could have been one of those sneaky things where he was trying to make it look like a tap a little bit to get out of the position, but then pretend he didn't do it. I'm not going to try to guess what was in his brain. I don't know. But yeah, Brandon Royval comes away with a split decision there. We did not have a bet on that one because that was a fight. That was one of those high variance fights where when I feel like I don't have a strong read on it, I just listen to that. I don't try to force a side. That was one of those fights where I was like, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen here, so I left it alone. Next fight, the people's main event. Jake Collier versus Chase Sherman. I did choose Collier to win. I thought he would win by decision. I don't think highly of Chase Sherman. The nice thing is I feel comfortable actually saying this now. On both of the YouTube streams that I did last week, I didn't feel comfortable just coming right out and saying that I think Jake Collier is underrated and that I think he's actually a pretty serviceable heavyweight, but I am going to come right out and say that now. Do I think he's excellent? Of course not. But I think Jake Collier is actually a pretty decent heavyweight. And I feel like the only reason people don't think he is just because of what he looks like. Yeah, I mean, he is the absolute epitome of a blown-up middleweight. He's 6'3", he's a big guy. But yeah, he carries all that extra weight. He does not look athletic. The guy's got a pretty solid boxing game. He minds his P's and Q's. He keeps a pretty tight guard. He obviously has grappling in his back pocket as well, which we saw here. I mean, think about it this way. Jake Collier, he wasn't a fantastic UFC middleweight by any means, but I mean, he was a UFC middleweight, and he got wins at middleweight. Think about generally speaking, the skill disparity between UFC heavyweights and UFC middleweights. Somebody who is able to have the skill level to actually hold their own at middleweight is likely going to have the skill level, assuming that they can then get to that size, which he has done with the fat in a weird way, I guess. But yeah, why wouldn't someone who is able to hold their own at middleweight have the skills to hold their own at heavyweight? Just a thought. Obviously the skill level at heavyweight tends to be a little lower. Pretty much being I maintain that being successful in the UFC at heavyweight, sure, there's a lot of things that come into it, but just being a big, tough, hard-hitting dude can make all the difference in the world. Collier isn't particularly hard-hitting. That's not who I'm talking about, but yeah. And then finally, hey, we might actually get through this pretty quick. I always say I'm not going to talk for a half hour. I might actually pull it off this time. And then the last fight, Calvin Kattar versus Giga Chikadze. What a fantastic fight, right? I mean, Calvin Kattar absolutely brought it. Giga Chikadze showed that his chin and his soul and his will are made of iron. Kattar absolutely beat the shit out of Giga Chikadze for 5 rounds. I mean, Chikadze had his moments. It's not that he didn't, but and this was a spot too where as I said, more than anything, I keep learning lessons from these cards, from the way the bets go, from the spots that I choose to pull the trigger on, the spots that I don't. I said that I was picking Giga to win, and I was. But that choice was based largely upon following the opinions of other people whose opinions I trusted. When I watched the tape, I actually thought, I don't see how Giga's going to win here. But I allowed myself to make that choice based on, especially since I'm still pretty new to this. I'm still pretty new to I'm not new to watching MMA, but I'm new to watching tape. I'm new to analyzing. I'm new to all of this whole process of taking MMA gambling seriously. And so it's hard for me to trust my own read sometimes when I see a bunch of other people that I know are sharp and whose opinions I trust, people that I've listened to their podcasts and looked up to them for a long time. And when I see all of those people picking Giga Chikadze, it makes me think, well, what they know more than I do, so why am I not gonna listen to them? So that's kind of what happened there. Really, based on my own tape study, I would have bet Calvin Kattar there, but I allowed myself to kind of be talked out of that opinion. So just another thing that I need to look at, is trying not to follow the herd so much and just be like, well, this is what my eyes are telling me, so I'm gonna roll with that. So anyway, all right, that's it for going through the card real quick. Let's go ahead and just recap those bets. I think we didn't quite talk about all of them, but we'll just start at the top and work our way down. Again, we had 2 units on Caitlin Chookagian at minus 155. That hit. We had 2 units on Joe Anderson Brito at minus 120. We lost that one. We had 2 units on Court McGee at minus 110. That one won. We did have a totals parlay with McGee Brahimi over 2.5 rounds and Chookagian Maia over 2.5 rounds. We had 1 unit on that at plus 103. Then because I made the Brito moneyline bet based mostly on my read that Brito could find a knockout in round 1, I figured I owed it to myself to at least sprinkle that. So we put 0.2 on Brito wins by KO in round 1 at plus 1150. And then finally we had that fade the late replacements parlay with Brown, Kelleher, and Chookagian. We had 1 unit on that at plus 196. Altogether, we had 8.2 units on the line. We won 3.9 units for an ROI of 48%. As you can see here, if you look at these little notepads with the pencils on the right side there, those are my write-ups. If you ever want to see the write-ups for my bets, go ahead and visit betmma.tips/erikblock. You can find all my bets and my write-ups there. Let's go ahead and take a look at our overall total at the moment as well. We're sitting at 30% ROI, so that's pretty cool. I'm not laboring under the delusion that that's going to last long, but it's pretty cool to see that. So after this event, it puts us at 45.85 units of profit overall at a 30% ROI, so I am excited about that. If you enjoy listening to my content, folks, make sure to check me out every Saturday on DFS by the Numbers YouTube channel. There's a show called Best Bets. There's a panel of 4 of us. It's me, Brady from DFS by the Numbers, Narco Cop MMA, and Uncle Wheezy MMA. And the 4 of us, we go on 1 hour before the prelims start. So when whatever time zone you're in, if your prelims start at 4, we're going to start our show at 3. And basically, in that 1 hour, the 4 of us go through the entire card and share our favorite bet for the card, and then we get done right as the prelims start. So that will be happening every event day, 1 hour before the first fight of the prelims. And again, that YouTube page is DFS by the Numbers. Make sure to check that out and subscribe. Make sure you also like and subscribe this video here. If you have any questions for me, throw them in the comments. If you have any videos you'd like me to do, any particular things you'd like me to break down or talk about, do let me know. I am Erik with Erik Bets Fights, reminding you to play it smart, play it tight, and let's grow those bankrolls. Thanks for stopping by, folks. Have a good one.